Facebook, YouTube. This is Piano Tech Radio Hour. We're about to get started and let in our live studio audience right now. Admit everyone. Hey there. Hi, Zoom friends. Sorry, we're starting a touch late, but good to have you here. Thank you for your patience. Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. And then, of course, hello out there on the socials, Facebook and YouTube. I'm Ethan Janney, your illustrious host. And we have a wonderful guest for you yet again today, full of creative and talented people on Piano Tech Radio Hour each week. I'll do an intro of the program, set the context, and then we'll get rolling. This is, as I mentioned a moment ago, this is Piano Tech Radio Hour. We gather here every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world and music world, including manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, of course, piano techs, all sorts of fascinating folks. Our mutual goal is to become better at our crafts, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can also subscribe to Radio Hour, this program, for just $16 per month and get direct access to each week's private Zoom call, as well as all the archival recordings of over 200 episodes in our member area. Join using the link bit.ly/joinptrh, that's bit.ly/joinptrh. Additionally, don't forget about the podcast version, audio only, at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can find out all about that. You can listen via iTunes, Spotify, all your favorite podcast players. And of course, check out the blog at Substack. Just look up Piano Technicians Masterclass there, where we'll share inside information on how to be a top-level piano technician, learn about those advanced concepts and voicing, regulation, and all sorts of piano maintenance topics, as well as some additional subject matter, which we've been adding. Of course, recently, our most recent masterclass was on key repairs, very informative, with Benjamin Roque, who is actually, we also learned in that class, taking over the business of Chris Brown of Piano, who creates the piano workstations, piano regulation workstations. But also we're doing lectures with composers, musicians, just really gaining some advanced and enlightening cultural information on all accounts. Make sure to follow us on our socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And without further ado, let me introduce our guest for today. Our guest for today is Avinoam Etun, a genre-defying composer and guitarist whose work blends electric guitar with orchestral and chamber music. His compositions explore the intersection of sound and visual inspiration, creating immersive musical landscapes. Avinoam's career spans composing for orchestras, arranging for jazz and pop ensembles, and performing with folk rock artists. He has collaborated with renowned groups like the Jazz Gallery Big Band and artists including Sienna Sears and Tali Golergant. A graduate of the New School and Jerusalem Academy of Music and Dance, as well as an alumnus of the BMI Jazz Composers Workshop, Avinoam continues to push the boundaries of modern composition. Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. How are you doing today?
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We get to see outside your window behind you there, little peek onto
Yeah,
your
it's pretty cool, isn't
neighborhood
it?
street. Where are you located? Begs the question. What's your area?
I'm in Brooklyn,
Oh,
in
okay, great.
yeah, next
Brooklyn,
to
New
the
York.
Prospects Park. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Prospect Park. Yeah, it does have a little New York City vibe. I didn't want to be presumptuous, but
Are
I
you
can
in
only
Boston? Or
I no, I'm not in Boston. I have my sweatshirt says Boston College on it, but no, it's just and I didn't even go there. I just like the sweatshirt.
oh,
It's cozy.
nice.
But we have I have a piano tuning business in New York City there. So I used to live in um, Fort Greene, Clinton Hill area. And so I know New York well. And then, we have a bunch of people on our team that live in various locations in Brooklyn and Manhattan. And yeah, so I love New York. I miss New York being there. I'm in the Chicago area right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive into the conversation about you, the focus of this program. Going back to your beginnings, where
Mhm.
were your first indications that music was going to be such a large part of your life?
Mm, um, I started playing guitar when I was like 10, I think. Um, and I think already then it was pretty big for me. Um, I started, I had friends who played guitar, and it became like a social thing. And then a little bit later, I started having bands with friends and writing songs. So I think it was pretty early.
Mm,
Um, and then it got more serious when I was like 15. I started learning music theory and harmony and ear training, and that's where like it became more than just like playing guitar, I guess.
hmm.
So like I was interested in composition and arranging and all of that.
And in terms of genres, what was the progression of various genres? Like, did you start out rock and roll or classical guitar or jazz or evolve into this or that? Like, what was your sort of progression of genre exposures and interest there?
So I think I started with the Green Day phase.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah. Good old
yeah,
pop punk era. Yeah.
yeah. I even had like a poster in my room, of American Idiot. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and then I had like a pretty cool teacher, and he had the attitude of like whatever you learn, like you learn a song, you go and write a song with kind of what you learn. So then it started with Green Day and it moved to like Pink Floyd and then to like, I don't know, Eric Clapton. And then pretty fast it moved to jazz and then to, I don't know, Debussy, Ravel. And then it's just like shifted to other areas, I guess.
Okay. I feel like now's a great time for us to get our first exposure to your own music. We
Mhm.
have a couple of clips that you shared that might be appropriate. Um, which one of the ones that you shared do you think might be a good first exposure here? We have
Um,
ear illusion, looking into your soul, and the quartet. Is it a quartet or an
yeah,
ensemble
maybe
at least?
let's put the ensemble because it's
The
live,
ensemble.
so it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let me bring that up. I should be able to do full screen when I share it, so that should be fine. Um, so let me go over to YouTube real quick and get it all queued up here. All right, here we go with the share and the sound. Get there. Good stuff. All right, you can see that, right? And then we'll get
Yeah.
it playing. Any setup here do you want to give? Like how the this is an original composition as well as performance and
Yeah, it's a performance of my band playing a song I wrote. I actually it started like as a piano piece. This one also like had a big band arrangement later, a, a oboe guitar arrangement. Like it's one of these compositions that went through many different arrangements. So
hmm,
that's one of them. Yeah.
okay, let's check this out. All right. Sometimes I cut it off, but I just
Hmm.
had to keep listening, see what's coming next. That's
Yeah,
a good one.
totally.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely genre bending in a lot of ways, right? I feel like there's
Mhm.
some jazz feeling. There's sort of like almost like modern mid-century jazz feel, but then there's also like a old, Americana type feel, where you're reaching back and or playing some, you know, almost like some country music, right? Or some hillbilly music or something, right? I mean, I don't know if any
Right,
of this is your intention, uh but I really enjoyed as well the pizzicato style on the cello, right?
right.
But kind of playing the cello as though it were an upright bass, which you don't hear a lot of. You hear bass players reaching up into that register, and then they'll play a little
Right.
that kind of thing. But it was cool to have the actual cello player be doing that. Now, in the intro, that there was an intro or a beginning part where the cello player was playing in that manner. Was that composed or was that improvised? Right? By the cello player.
It was improvised. Yeah.
It was improvised. Okay. So hey, it's your
Yeah.
you take a little solo
Take your
part. Yeah.
moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. What leads you to compose a piece like that? How much are you thinking through it? Oh, I want to combine these different styles, da 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 da, versus, hey, I like the way this sounds. Let me just start playing. Like you said, there were a lot of different incarnations of this particular tune where you had different instrumentations and things like that. But how did it get
Right.
born?
Um, I mean, for me, it works like this. You come up with a musical theme, right? And I mean, sometimes you have one player to work with, and maybe it's yourself. Sometimes maybe it's two people, and sometimes you have a big band. So I think being able to transform a theme through different, in a way, it's different styles, but like, I mean, this is a great example for players who are like string players. Uh, they come from different tradition. Like there is this whole um Midwest violin school kind of thing, which is like kind of country, right? Which is violin, which is not like
The fiddle.
classical.
The fiddle.
The fiddle, exactly.
Yes.
Thanks. That was what I was looking for. So like when you get to work with players from different backgrounds, like immediately they would take things to their own place, to their own musical world. And I think as a composer, sometimes you need to sometimes you need to back off and let people do their thing. But on the other hand, it's very good to be able to also use or orchestration tools or arranging tools to work with different ensembles. So like, yeah, I mean, sometimes it would be like uh, this. It's funny. This tune I played in like many different settings, and like
Mm.
I also played it with a player. Like these guys are all improvising kind of players.
Yes.
But I also played it with a classical oboe player who really needed me to notate everything.
Hmm.
So I wrote gestures that sounded like she's improvising, or
Hmm.
so it's very different each time.
Mm. And then just a bit more about this particular incarnation of it. It was for people who might be listening at a later date, audio only. There was kind of a platform, right? You had the small group there in a staged area, and ostensibly there was an audience. Maybe it's a venue. Um, where was this done? Was this in New York? Was this in a different location? Where did you record that?
Yeah, that was I forgot the name of the venue. Oh my God. It's in a small space in New York. It's an art gallery.
Okay,
Yeah, Shoal Street.
Shoal Street.
Um, yeah, Shoal Street Music Gallery.
Okay.
So it's like a venue for like, I don't know, 15 people max. And I was playing there with my band, and then there were two other bands. So it was like very, very short.
And this is an ensemble. Do you still play with these same folks, or does you kind of have like a shifting and moving ensemble in terms of who you
It's
play with?
kind of shifting and moving. Yeah. Sometimes, in New York, people have like many things going on. So, like the cellist in this video actually was not the cellist I was playing with. It was his first gig in this setting. So, like,
Hmm.
it's always shifting kind of thing.
Hmm. And so you came to New York, I'm guessing, specifically to study at the new school, or did you come to New York first and then found yourself there? What brought you to New York?
I came to New York to study at the new school.
Hmm.
I got my master's in, it's called performer composer. So I studied like guitar and composition. Uh, yeah, that was like 2021.
Okay.
And then I stayed here.
And how much, by the way, and was that it was coming here and applying to the school in New York City? Was that kind of your first exposure? Had you visited New York? Had you been to the States much, or was that this kind of like your introduction and launch into being in the States?
I've been to New York. I've been to New York
Okay.
a few times, and it was like every time I came, it was like a lot around music. Like I came when I was in high school, and I remember going to the Blue Note to see John Scofield.
Oh wow. That's great.
And then yeah, when I was 13, I went to see Eric Clapton, I think. So it was like always for me, New York like symbolizes music in a way.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yes. And did you apply to other institutions in other places? Oh, I know like Texas has a great, program, or California or whatever.
I
Were you kind of like, I'm coming to New York? This is where I'm gonna go.
no, I did
Hmm.
and I ended up thinking this was the best for me. Also like I heard from a lot of friends and people who went to study abroad that they're like, "Oh, I wish I went to New York." New York is the thing, you know. You hear
Hmm.
this all the time. So I was
Yes.
like, okay, I want to
Yes.
experience that.
And how's it been? What's the scene like for you, particularly as a composer? Some people, I'm guessing, like you said, performer composer, you're not solely focused on performance. Some people are out at the jam sessions every chance they get, some people are, you know, performing in, maybe they're studying jazz, but they're performing in kind of rock and pop bands and indie bands and things like that. What's the scene like for you? What's your experience in New York? How does that evolve?
It's interesting. I mean, I grew up in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, you have two or one or two clubs with like jams and stuff. Um, and the repertoire being played in jams is very specific. And so, coming here and like seeing, I don't know, the Smalls and then seeing the Stone, which is like totally on the avant-garde side, and getting to see the New York Philharmonic and understanding that there is like a whole um group of musicians who are like not in any genre but like kind of doing their own thing and take from different traditions was pretty cool to me. Um so in a way New York is just bigger. I mean it is.
Yes, yeah, it's big. It's bigger in surface area, but also scope, I suppose, right? Like all these different things going on, different people from different countries everywhere. Yeah, all
Yeah.
this kind of thing. Absolutely. Um, Talk to me about piano. You got an electronic keyboard behind you.
Oh
We've
man.
actually you're one of a series of guitarists we've had. We've had a couple classical guitarists recently.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's been kind of fun. We've had guitar maker. I have a friend who makes hollow body electric guitars. out in California, and we had him on to talk about his process. So clearly you use a piano, but it's that, what's your relationship to it? Much more than just kind of a compositional um tool.
As time goes by, um, I play way more piano. I mean, um, trying to expand as a composer and to write, I don't know, just more voices going on
Hmm.
and to really know what you're doing. Um, I spend most of my time now, if I'm not working, just like learning music. Um, Now I work on Scriabin. Um, and and it's interesting because like coming from guitar, and I mean with background in composition, and like I got to my ears to a certain point that my fingers are not there yet, piano wise. So it's a lot of that. It's like yeah. I mean I'm a piano student right now, basically.
Okay. You're making me think of this too. Just an aside. We had a guest a few weeks back. He's created an app, a piano app. I'm sure there's plenty of piano apps. It's sort of a new one. There's really only a small audience of people using it. It's called MuseFlow. So you can go check it out. And we have a 50% off thing that he gave us to try it. It's one of those things where you don't even have to give a card to try it. Um, Radio 50 is our code. So if you want to go to MuseFlow and try
Nice.
this out, it's
Check
cool
it out.
that it's meant to focus on the sight reading aspect of playing piano. So
Mm-hmm.
it gives you a lot of lessons where you just kind of have to like see the note and play it, see the note and play it, see the note and play it. And it gets you, they call it MuseFlow because it kind of gets you into this flow state. So not only are you learning to sight read, but you're kind of getting in this like meditative zone, which some kind of people kind of enjoy just the sort of exercise of getting in the zone, getting in the flow state there. So check that out if you're
Oh,
interested.
nice.
Um,
I mean, I I think piano is interesting in like I'm a student of the piano in the sense of like you have a theme and you want to see what Ravel did with it, and you want to see what Quincy Jones did with it, and you want to see what Scriabin did with it. So I'm like trying to gather things from like different pianist composers and
mm,
understand them more. If it makes
mm,
sense.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it was a conversation recently had to just what it's like to play different instruments and how that can give you different musical ideas, right? We were talking about the guitar specifically, I believe, in one of these most recent episodes, and just even the capacities of the guitar itself, especially the classical style guitar, and talking about the little nuances, right, that you don't have in other instruments, and you maybe even can hardly notate, like on the classical or even the electric guitar. You change the placing of the pick where you're going to pick, and it's going to give you like a more abrasive tone versus a gentler sound, a rounder sound, or bending notes, right? Different ways to
Right.
bend notes, combining different things, playing harmonics, playing a note a different place on the guitar and might sound a little bit differently, even though it's the same pitch. Um, so yeah, that is a fun aspect of going through multiple instruments. I'm very curious here about your time at the New School. What is it like to learn about composition at the New School? What kind of topic areas do you cover, and how unique to you does it get, versus having a generalized curriculum?
Um, it was interesting. Um, I basically I think the big thing was the ability to take private lessons with different teachers.
Hmm.
So I studied with a few different composers who had like very different creative process. Um, and I kind of saw what they're doing.
Mm.
So I studied with this guy Uri Kane, who is
Mm.
actually a pianist.
Yeah, wonderful.
Um,
I think we tuned his piano
and
a couple times.
oh, really? So actually, he was very he didn't want to teach. He was like, "I'm not teaching." It's like, "Please, man, take me as your student. I'll be a good student." So we were emailing, and he was like, "Let's learn something together." So we ended up kind of score studying together. Um, I chose like one or two pieces each week, and we would analyze and compare and speak about it. And that was a big chunk of my studies there.
Mm.
Um,
For how long
and
did you do those? Was that just like a semester or multiple
I think it
semesters?
was
Or
like 2 semesters. Yeah.
okay.
But this kind of made me wanna. I was like, great, I can hear these chords. I can maybe even do guitar reductions for some of it. But playing it on the piano is a real thing, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I feel like I've heard this before, but just to clarify, at a school like the new school, is that's kind of how it works. Like you go and you who do you want to take lessons with? You know, they kind of ask you who you'd like. You go find them, and then they see if they can help facilitate that as part of your curriculum. Is that true?
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
totally. So like it
And
was
then they
it
they
was
basically negotiate, they pay with that person, and you just have your lessons, and you get credit for it or something. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So like I had people in my class who were like singer-songwriters who used, I don't know, Ableton as their instrument. And I have a friend who's like an avant-garde sax player. And like I had friends who wrote like a opera. It was very
Mm-hmm.
diverse,
Mm-hmm.
which was super, like I think that was the coolest thing in the program.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that model too. It's interesting to think you could, you know, what if that was how engineering was taught? You know, what if you went to the engineering school and they said, well, find an engineer that you would like to learn from, and we'll we'll arrange for you to spend a semester, picking their brain. That's not a bad concept. I like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, typically most universities they have their stat faculty, and then you work with who they have, and that's how it works. But I think the new
Right.
school and a couple other universities have that kind of open policy, which is pretty cool. Um, that gives me a couple other ideas for a question. So two questions, and maybe you already shared it. What do you think was the most, maybe a tough question? What do you think is the most important thing you learned about composition? Because you've graduated from the new school, right? You
Hmm.
finished. What's most important thing that you've learned while you were there? And I guess if you feel like it's just expanding, it's just during that time, maybe you learned it outside of the school or whatever. The other question would be, maybe it's a different answer. If you could share one important thing about composition with someone else that would be enlightening, what would you tell them?
Hmm. Um, I think speaking about composition, I I think for me, and again, it's like a very subjective thing, right? Um, so maybe the number one thing I learned was that at the end of the day, it's very, very personal, and there is no right and wrong. And like you can read something in a book, and then you'll find the book that says the different thing, or you could see someone do something in a specific way and be very like almost religious about it, but then like seeing the total opposite. Um, but with like hand in hand with saying how much personal it is and how much there is not right and wrong, I also found that the people who fascinated me musically the most and were also like maybe touching me with their music or intriguing, evoking thoughts in me, or just like, yeah, made me move something in me, were people who really studied some kind of tradition. And it doesn't really matter what kind of tradition, but they found something that they got excited about and really digged into it.
Mm.
Yeah. So I mean, I also the new school, and also like as a composer trying to like you see a piece you really like maybe, and you contact the composers. I found like when I arrived at the city, I took many lessons with people, and also back in my undergrad, and I think like I had quite a few teacher, and at the end of the day, it always gets to like you find something you really like musically, you and you try to like reverse engineer what was the process of the composer, how did they get to this piece, you know, and trying to engage in with that the most is I don't know, I found it helpful. Does it make
No,
sense?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I remember at one point learning that John Coltrane studied Sidney Bechet, very intensely like this. The
Mm-hmm.
and and then I remember listening to Sidney Bechet and being like, this sounds nothing like John Coltrane.
Right, right.
And it's fascinating, right? And you run into that too. It's like people find their unique voice by going so deeply into some other voice, and somehow that emerges, right? I mean, I would say I also think of Bob Dylan and Woody Guthrie. Of course, I would say when I listen to Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan, I do hear more similarities than I do between Sidney Bechet and John Coltrane. But maybe it's subjective. Uh, and and each of these folks has created their own unique voice. Is there some examples from the people that you sort of studied either personally with or from afar of who you noticed, or what tradition you noticed they studied, and then who that
I
person
mean,
was?
it's kind of crazy to me, all of them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I studied with a composer named Emilio Soja. He's Argentinian. I think he won a Grammy for big band writing.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I wrote like a suite for 11 piece, which was like string quartet and some flutes and bass drums. And I had like an orchestration problem kind of thing. And he was like, "Oh, let me open my Tchaikovsky." And he opened his Tchaikovsky, and like it was just like a score of like a symphony or something, and everything was full of little things he wrote to himself.
Mm.
And I experienced the same thing when I studied with Uri Kane, who he was like, "What piece do you want to learn from next week?" And I said, "I want to learn Scriabin Prelude in A minor, something there is very pretty, you know?" So he came back the next week and he copied everything to Sibelius and made a little, like, wrote the chord symbols and yeah, I mean, I think everyone kind of does it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone kind of, yeah. Really.
Okay. And does that circle back to the other question I said? That's maybe one of the most important things you would tell somebody else about composition, or is there a different answer there?
Um, no, I think it is, but I think it should be something personal. Like nobody can tell a person what touches them. So a
Mm,
composer should really figure this out for themselves. But
mm,
I do
mm.
feel like in today's composition world, especially in academics, maybe people kind of forget to do that, to learn traditions seriously, and maybe they go immediately to more advanced stuff.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know if this is the case because I've studied a lot of different things. But sometimes I feel myself guilty of that, of rushing into new things and saying, "Oh, I have these amazing ideas," and then you kind of show them to people who are like steeped in the thing, and whether they say it or not, they kind of get this vibe from them, like, yeah, yeah, somebody thought of that, like you need to let go. You need to dive back into the things. You
Right.
studied
I
the
mean,
tradition first,
it's kind of crazy sometimes. Like, I remember I just had a talk with my friend this week. He was like, he had some kind of technical problem on his guitar, and he was trying to arpeggiate the chord, and he didn't have the right fingering. I was like, man, look at Villa Lobos, and he looked at Villa Lobos and he called me and he said something like, you know, people have been doing this for so long, and we try sometimes to reinvent the wheel without even like checking what's going on before us. So yeah.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll listen to one more thing. So we have the ear illusion, or looking into your soul. I am curious the title of the ear illusion, whether we listen to it or not. Why ear illusion?
Mm, I guess it's kind of between me and me,
Oh, okay.
but it's kind of an easy listening kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, but the brain work behind it was
Mm,
so much. So like, if you listen to it, it probably sounds very simple,
oh,
but it was
okay.
very hard to write. I don't know. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Well, let's check that out now that we have that context. Sounds fun.
cool.
Um, and that is just a video with a stable image. So maybe I'll just play it instead of doing a screen share. Let me see here. Share computer sound. Okay. And we could just look at our lovely faces while we ponder it, I suppose. If that's more interesting, I don't know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Another one, I had to listen to the whole thing. Goes a lot of fun places. So, and we'll wrap up here pretty soon, but oh, I was curious the instrumentation on that. Am I right? It was sort of
Mhm.
a mix of live players and and synthesized things, or like tell me about the ensemble there. Like how was
Oh,
that put together? Yeah.
and I mean, it was all live.
Oh, okay.
The piano is like
Digital piano.
was MIDI. Yeah.
Okay. But
Um.
everything else was a person playing an instrument.
Yeah.
Oh. And was it, you said live, meaning was it recorded live? Like everybody's just playing and you just recorded it, or did you record different tracks and pull it
Yeah.
together?
It was recorded live. It's
Oh,
actually
wow.
it's interesting. I mean, you remember in COVID, everyone were doing like the small videos with like
Yeah.
squares and people
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it started as that, and
Okay.
I made a version like that. And then when COVID ended, I went on a studio and recorded it like that.
Hmm.
And the piano, my friend from New York, Enrique Eisenman, he added his playing to that.
Okay. So basically everything else was recorded, and then the piano afterwards? No. At the end?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
The piano was added at the end.
yeah.
Oh, that's weird. That's crazy because it feels like the piano is the anchor of the whole thing. That's
I
interesting.
know. It was yeah. It was interesting to do. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, fascinating. And all of the strings were live strings. None of them were synthesized strings.
No.
No. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's weird. It's fascinating. Well, that was fun. It was fun to listen to. And I
Thanks.
remember one thing too while I was listening to the first one. You get to write the score for my movie. Whatever, I'll make a movie. I have a piano tuner movie that I'm gonna make some point. Um, you probably have to incorporate more piano than you have been, but yeah, I feel like it's so unique and there's a lot of movement of emotions and subtleties there. I like the last one. There's kind of like it breathes, that last one. It breathes. There's like a breath that comes in and out with the swells of the chords and things like that. Um,
Thanks.
John, okay, Johan Krebs says, I hear so many textures in your music. That is something we piano tuners could add to our repertoire to make tuning more than adjusting pitch. And John Ross says, double plus, you have created great magic. Very nice style. All right.
Thank you.
Well, add that to your accolades on your website or something.
Totally.
uh,
Thanks.
all right. Well, before we cut out here, where would you like to send people? Website, social media, check this out, words of wisdom. What would you like to leave us with?
Uh, First of all, thanks for having me. Super nice.
Absolutely.
It
Hmm.
was nice speaking to you. And social media. My Instagram is Avinoam E, Avinoame. And my Facebook is Avinoam Etun, as my name, right down here. I'm playing a few shows soon. So I'll be playing next week in Silvana, Harlem, with a Israeli singer named Adi Orion. We're gonna play some folk songs, and then I'm flying with Sienna Sears to play showcase at Montreal. So if anybody is in Montreal, we're gonna play in the Folk Alliance Festival, uh, February 19, 20, 21, and 23. And we're gonna play at a spot called May Zone at February 24, 8 p.m. Yeah.
And Maison that's the one in Montreal, or that's
Mm-hmm. That's
okay.
the one in Montreal.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, great. Wonderful stuff. Um, folks, we have reached, oh, and I'll say we'll end right after I do the outro, but we'll end the Zoom. But if you want to jump back on real quick, we'll just do a quick closeout. You and me. So just jump back on the Zoom link even after I close it. Make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, we have reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. Thanks to Avi Noam for joining us today. As always, we are brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. For those of you that joined us today by signing up for the session individually, make your life more convenient. Subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, just $16 a month. You'll get the recording of today's session in our member area, as well as automatic registration for each week's new session. Sign up at bit.ly/joinptrh, bit.ly/joinptrh. And that's all we have for today. And we'll see you again next week. It'll be Valentine's time, and that'll be fun as well. We'll share the love. Sayonara. Have a great